City of Stevens Point Finance Committee meeting, recorded September 12, 2022.
We're all here. So, good evening. It's 6:37, and we will convene the Finance Committee meeting. I'm Alder Polly Dalton. I'll be chairing tonight. Alder and Chair Johnson is feeling under the weather, so she is present via Zoom, but her throat is not up to the task. Yes. Deputy Comptroller Treasurer Freiberg, could you please do the roll call?
Sure. Johnson?
Here.
Morrow?
Here.
Shore?
Here.
Dalton?
Here.
Carlson?
Here.
All right, then the second item on our agenda, which is a non-action item, is a presentation of the 2023 capital budget. We are beginning the budget process, and capital is the first item of discussion.
I suppose I have to go to the podium.
Can you zoom in on the screen, please? Thank you. Yep. Actually, you're okay there, Carrie, because these microphones will pick that up.
Yeah.
No, maybe you better.
Yeah.
Kidding.
Okay. First off, I want to make sure everybody's aware. Corey did the presentation. I did not. So I don't want to take his glory away. So, all right. First off, where are we in the process? September Finance, which is where we're at now, it's the initial presentation. This is where you have a chance to ask any questions, express any initial concerns. We're not looking for any formal action today. At the October Finance Committee, which will be October 10th, and then again at the council meeting, we will be looking for formal action. Both Finance Committee and council can make amendments, looking for formal approval. After October Council, which would be on October 17th, we'd like to wrap up and move forward with the projects. Then again, on the fourth Monday in October, which would be the 24th, we would be presenting the operational budget.
And I just want to add a little bit, because this is where we are now. But the budget process started in June, working with all of the directors. Carrie has been instrumental this year in meeting with myself and all the directors as we go through all of the different incarnations of the budget. So we started out, and we'll talk about this in a bit here, we started out way above what we had the ability to spend. But working with the directors, finding some creative alternatives, scaling down some of the projects. Your city staff has done a phenomenal job coming in at a budget that is acceptable. And I can't thank Carrie enough for being part of every single one of those meetings, all of the questions that we had to go through. So you're seeing this for the first time, but there have been months of work from your city staff, in particular from the Comptroller Treasurer's Office and the directors, to make sure that we have a budget that we are comfortable presenting. Sorry, I just needed to toot that horn for you.
You okay? All right, on the next slide. So the sources of funding the capital budget this year, $5,081,428 is from the borrowing proceeds, which we will be borrowing next year. $2,516,822 is from the ARPA funds, which was the stimulus money. We got a little bit of it last year, and we're taking the rest of it this next year. So this will be the last of that money. We're using $700,000 of the fund balance, and then $1 million are proceeds from the TIF repayments, leaving the balance for the 2023 capital budget being $9,298,250. As most of you know, the fund balance means that it's the use of budget surpluses resulting from either revenues coming in higher than expected or budgeted, or expenses coming in lower than expected or budgeted. Two TIF districts are also repaying advances from the general fund, which results in extra money that the general fund can use for capital projects. The TIF repayments, I did want to clarify a little bit about that. That's from TIF 6. It was upside down, and the general fund loaned money to it, and now it's doing better, so it's been able to start repaying back what it owes.
Carrie, is that use of fund balance what we anticipate having at the end of the year, the entirety of it? It's not, there's an extra sitting around.
No, there is no extra.
No, and that's important to point out too, because that fund balance that's left over is due almost exclusively to your directors either budgeting appropriately and things coming in less than expected, or them finding other ways to make those ends meet. I mean, with the decreases that we've had in state funding and shared revenue and every other thing that gets cut from us, the directors really go to bat every single day to try and make sure that they come in under budget. So it's not like we just have this extra money laying around. They work for that extra money to be used at the end of the year.
Okay, the capital budget size versus the requests. As you can see there, back in 2021, our budget for capital was 6.27 million. And today's 2023 capital budget is going to be coming in at 9.29 million, which this is more than past years by quite a bit. That's basically due to the ARPA funds that we're using. So next year, we're gonna need to keep that in mind so that we can go back down to where we're supposed to be, which is more down to the 6-7 million. He did, in the chart below, he did go through what's initially requested so far for the years up to 2027, and then shows the difference of those, so.
I want to touch on that one too a little bit, because the initial requests that you see for 2024 and out, they're not really refined. We know things are out there, but sometimes we get rid of the asset. Sometimes we find a grant that will help. I mean, the ARPA helped a lot this year, because I don't know that we could cut another $2.5 million out of our budget. That would have, I mean, we're bare bones the way it is. So don't let those numbers alarm you yet, but just know that deferred maintenance is a big reason that we're having some of these larger numbers. You'll see a fair amount of roof replacements and roof maintenance, parking lot replacement that is in this year's capital budget, because they've been put off for so long that they're now starting to affect the structural integrity of the building underneath the roof, and we cannot have that. So by injecting a little bit more this year really helped, and we can talk to the fire chief and the police chief about that, because their roofs are right up there too. But the need is always there. The needs don't go away, but sometimes we're able to find alternatives. So I wouldn't let these numbers alarm you too much yet.
The next slide shows the requested versus the recommended. He wanted me to make sure that I pointed out that the purple line on there is the target, which is what we will expect that we'll have available. That line can change, of course, but as you can see, there's always usually more requested than what we have available. Now we'll get into where the actual money is going to be spent for capital. So under community development for 2023, we're going to have a $21,000 citywide assessment revaluation and a $100,000 signage plan, which we are going to be funding with TIF money.
I want to talk a little bit about each of these too, because it helps to know why we prioritize these. The revaluation, if you remember several years ago, we hadn't done a revaluation in like 10 years. And there were some huge shifts in people's property values. People can't handle that. So we had made a commitment as a city to do these revaluations much more frequently, so there's less of an impact on the property owners. That's why we're doing it, because the last one was done 3 years ago, and we're doing another one in 2023. So we have that. The signage plan, that's wayfinding signage. If you drive through the city, you'll find that there are probably 4 different generations of wayfinding signage. Some of the businesses don't even exist anymore. So we're working with the Convention and Visitors Bureau and getting some signage that's going to be updated. The benefit here is that we're paying for those through the tax incremental districts. which means, again, it doesn't affect your property taxes and my property taxes as much as it does the increment that's generated in those different districts. The districts, we've got several of them going right now, but the boundary and the laws allow you to go about a half mile outside of the district for things that affect the district, and wayfinding signage clearly does affect the developments within those districts, so we're able to use that TID money to help pay for the signage.
Under citywide, we have a citywide building maintenance account, $50,000. That is a yearly ongoing cost that we put in there. Information technology, $50,000 to replace the devices for the fire apparatus, $25,000 for external wireless APs for public Wi-Fi at Cultural Commons, Piffner, Buchholz, and Main Street, and $15,000 for a printer scanner, which is a large format printer for engineering. Under transit, we have $306,000. That is for bus purchases for the fixed routes. It is being paid with transit funds on hand, and I need to point out too that this is for the local share of the bus purchases.
80% of that is covered through federal grants.
Under the Department of Public Works, Engineering and Other, $120,000 traffic signal improvements, $90,000 for sidewalk assessments, $36,000 for traffic impact analysis, $32,000 for GPS, and $30,000 for temporary signals and traffic control.
And the signal improvements are retiming lights based on traffic counts, relatively routine stuff. The other one I wanted to point out was the sidewalk assessments. That was something that council chose to put into the capital mix, rather than special assessing each of the property owners. So every year, this is gonna come up and have to be reprioritized within the shuffle on whether or not we can afford to spend whatever we need to on those sidewalks. $90,000 this year was only made possible because of that $2.5 million in ARPA funding. So know that, I mean, you'll see some of the requests that had to get turned down. Those are the things that these sidewalks are gonna be competing with every single year. Just so you know that.
There are two types of road construction. One is street reconstruction, which replaces both road surface and utilities underneath. Basically, they dig everything up and replace it. And then there's street resurfacing, which is replacing only the road surface, leaving utilities, curb, and gutter. That being said, we have $1.85 million in complete reconstruction for next year, Minnesota, Algoma, and Texas. This is only the city portion. This does not include the utilities. $3,315,000 in resurfacing, which is including Janik Circle, Ridge Road, Bush, Indiana, Channel, Lindbergh, and Belkey. Janik and Ridge were part of, they started this project last year, but they were running short, so they are pushing it out to 2023, so we're funding part of that here. The $1.75 million is for the Business 51, the north side, and this is only for the design and real estate acquisition, which is also being TIF funded. $750,000 is for the road surface improvements, and $35,000 is for intersection retiming, which is TID funded, and also the total for the road projects is $7.7 million.
A couple of things to touch on here. You'll see that the numbers differ slightly from those referenda questions. That's because we've added some things like Janik Circle and Ridge Road, which were projects that had already been started. Half of it was paid for in 2022, the other half will be in 2023. For the sake of this presentation, we lumped those together, but the referendum questions will be accurate, the ones that are over $1 million. You can see that 1.85 is the ballpark for the reconstruction. We put 1.9, I think, in the referenda question to be on the safe side. The other question that I wanted to answer before it becomes a question is the 1.75 for the North Side Business 51 design and real estate acquisition. That is coming out of the TIF, and It's for design and real estate acquisition. The referendum question says before construction begins. This isn't part of construction, so we have a little bit more time. This will be on the April ballot for that north side construction, Business 51. Yep, and I think that's it.
So on the next page, there's the road construction budget from 2016 to 2022. As you can see, every year we've put more money into the road construction, as we promised we would try to do.
And if you recall, the council several years ago did an inventory of all of its assets, the roads, the buildings, the vehicles, and we based our capital budget on the life cycles of those projects. Since we did that, which was great, by the way, everybody, that's how you should budget. But since we've done that, we have not been able to invest enough money that we agreed on. We haven't been able to hit that mark for road resurfacing, road repairs, road construction since we came up with the number. So we're doing a little bit better every year, as you can see, but we're not where we should be yet.
For fleet vehicles and equipment, we're planning on $610,000 for 2 loaders and 1 6-way blade attachment, $310,000 for a sweeper, $225,000 for 3 pickups for public works and 2 for parks, $35,000 for a parking enforcement vehicle, which will be funded by the parking fund, $15,500 for a mower attachment for the tractor, and $9,000 for a concrete saw. The fire department, $400,000 for 30 self-contained breathing apparatuses, $50,000 for CADS devices and service contracts, $28,750 for training site updates, $28,750 for turnout gear, $23,000 for general fire equipment, and $17,250 for technical rescue equipment.
CAD, for those of you who don't know, is computer-aided dispatch. The SCBA's, they're on their last year. They can only be recertified so many times, and they are at the very end of their life cycle. These are important safety equipment replacements that need to be done. Turnout gear, as you can imagine, gets beat up. Once it gets full of smoke, the carcinogens in there, you need to get rid of it. You can only wash it so many times. So it's important that we keep these cycles moving on the safety equipment.
For the Parks Department, we have a $750,000 roof replacement at the arena, $330,000 for ball diamond light replacement. $50,000 of that is regular capital, $100,000 of that is room tax, and $180,000 of that is from Legion. The Legion, they're doing fundraising. If they don't manage to get that much money, then the project will not go forward. Right, Dan?
Yep.
Okay. $261,000 for replacing the rubber surfacing at Cash Playground. $215,000 of that is regular capital. $46,000 of that was community foundation money, which was from a maintenance reserve account that they set up from donations that were taken for that project. So this is the leftover money from that. $200,000 is for the band shell to replace the roof and the glue lamp repair, and $20,000 is for the swim pool guardhouse, changing room repairs and upgrades.
You can ask, because I did at least 3 times. The glue lamp is the fancy architectural support for the roof. There's a name for that. I would call it the support beams, but it's more than a beam.
Glue lamp.
It's a glue lamp.
Yeah, who didn't know that?
Right? Yeah, but it's important to point these things out too. So room tax, the city doesn't have any control over. We have by statute, we have a room tax committee, tourism commission rather, that determines where that money goes. But with the Cash Playground resurfacing and the ball diamond lighting replacement, there's a fair amount of that's private money. People who really care about the parks and our use of the parks. The $46,000 was a cash maintenance fund that we've had to use a couple of times for replacing things. We're draining that though. And the $180,000 that the Legion is raising privately is a testament to how much the community cares about our parks. Same thing is happening right now at Gerke. You know, $5 million plus for stadium improvements, and a vast majority of that, almost all of it, was raised privately. So if you get a chance to see it, there's a pink game on Saturday at 7 o'clock. You can see it on the Jumbotron and see some of those stadium improvements.
The police department gets $52,000 for SWAT equipment, which is 13 vests and 2 shields.
And I want to touch on that too, because we have vests. But I looked it up, and there is a degradation that occurs with these vests. And they become less and less useful, even though they're not like warding off projectiles. Just the chemical degradation, they lose integrity. So there's a life expectancy on those as well.
And are there any questions?
I'll look to the committee first if anyone has any. David or Melissa on Zoom too.
Thank you for getting the gulam fixed.
Lulam.
Lule.
That's good.
I'm going to stop sharing. We will put this presentation out on our website though, so anybody who wants to see it can have it. And of course, for alderpersons, that's included in your packet already. So.
I think I just had one thought regarding the room tax dynamics. If the Legion money falls through, or is the room tax, is there any give and take on that? And then do the directors have a negotiation about asking the tourist committee about the room tax funds?
I'm not
Like
sure what you mean.
like wayfinding signs maybe could have fallen under that
Yes,
as well.
we could have.
But it was kind of, that was the negotiation of what makes sense.
Yeah, we didn't do any applications to the room tax commission, but that's separate. Even the city would have to apply for room tax money
Yes.
for whatever reason, and there's a process. It's available on our website for anyone who's has an event or a project that will put heads in beds. That's what they call it. You know,
Yes.
generating hotel night stays. So yes, we could. We didn't because we were able to find some alternatives right
Okay.
now.
And that's like, because
and-
that seems on the upper limit of maybe what they are willing to contribute to a project.
It seems pretty, yes, it's pretty steep, but I gotta tell you, you know, the thing that scares me about the room tax is sometimes they'll make multiple year commitments, which
Oh.
means, you know, like our capital budget, every year you have a little bit more money, but you're already committed on 60-70% of this, so.
Yeah.
That gets to be a catch-22 as well.
All right. Well, that presentation will now be available to the public for anyone else who wants to investigate and ask questions. Our next non-action agenda item is a discussion on bond rating financial impacts. And we had an accompanying memo in our agenda. Carrie, do you want to speak further on the subject?
Yes, last month, there was some questions regarding what would happen if we would be downgraded at all in our bond rating. So Corey called Ellers, and they put together a hypothetical $5 million bond with a 20-year term. So if the difference in interest cost between an AA2, which is our current rating, and an AA3, double A3, one notch downgrade over the life of the bond is $34,893. That is just for one bond, so we'd have to keep in mind for anything after that would also have that additional attached to it.
Okay.
So he said, basically, we're talking tens of thousands of dollars, not hundreds of
Hundreds,
thousands.
yeah. Be relatively incremental impact. Alder Shore, you have your hand raised?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I wanted to speak to this. I think I was one of the ones who asked for us to take a look at it. And the reason is this: we are justifiably proud of our high rating and careful, take care with it. so that we don't incur a lot of extra borrowing costs. But my thought was that rather than viewing it as like a question of principle to take zero risk of a downgrade, I thought it would be better to look, in practical terms, at what the cost actually would be. And so I think this is telling us, of course, always be careful, but that there might be room to take some level of risk because we wouldn't on a first downgrade be socked with a massive increase in the cost. So that's the thought. Thanks.
Is there any other comments or discussion from the committee? Anyone in the audience? All right. We will move on to our next item, initiating the process of borrowing for the 2022 fiscal year. Carrie, I'll look to you as well.
Okay. Basically, for the 2022 borrowing, we are looking at borrowing $9,315,000, which would be a tax-exempt 10-year term. This would be a competitive issue done in the open market through our financial advisor, which is Ellers. The other bond would be a $3.35 million bond, which would be a taxable bond for 20 years. This is an upfront development incentive for 2 housing projects in TIF 11, the former convent site and the former Point Motel site. Normally, this would be financed as a competitive issue on the open market, but he's looking at doing the loan through the state trust fund because it should be cheaper. The other significant benefits to utilizing the state fund are that the loan is callable, which means we can refinance it if the rates go down in the future, and there are no issuance expenses. It's been a while since we used the state trust fund, but because of the interest rates, they haven't been real competitive, but now with the interest rates increasing, this is now favorable. So the interest rate would be 4.75, which is higher than any of the borrowings we've done lately, but that's just where the interest rates are. There's also a memo in the packet from Director Lemke for the utility revenue bond. Do you want to talk on yours, or are there any questions on his?
Just real quickly, that the commission met today, looked over that memo. We talked about some similar stuff in the way of borrowing, and I told them I'd report to you their actions, and they moved approval to move forward.
Thank you. Alder Shores, you have your hand raised.
Thanks, Chair. Just quickly on this, using the state borrowing facility, if anyone else has ever had what's it called, a lock-in, float-down mortgage, this advantage of being able to renegotiate with the state if interest rates, if and when they go down, sounds like a really good deal. Thanks.
Yes, Alder
I was
Fauci.
just curious, Carrie, how does that borrowing amount compare to years prior? Do you have any?
The amount of the bond or the interest rate?
Is that pretty much a yearly thing where we're around 9 million or whatever borrowing?
9 million's higher than what we normally are.
It's a little bit higher, but we're always in that range, right?
Okay.
We've had a few more things this year, so 9 million is a little bit higher than what we would normally do, but not like way out of line.
Off the charts, okay.
No.
Sounds good.
So
And that also means too, that we resolve debt every year as well.
Right.
So we try and keep the debt level pretty steady,
Yep.
just so we don't see big spikes up and down.
Yep. Sounds good.
So what I'm needing is approval to continue on with the process, and next month we'll probably have more information on it.
Tomorrow so moved.
I'll second it.
Morrow motions and Carlson seconds. Any further discussion? All right, all those.
If I might just quickly, picking up on that last point, the keeping a fairly steady level. If I'm remembering correctly, that's one of the things that our accountants who do the audit often kind of give us kudos on. Thanks.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? And I don't think, any abstentions? All right. And that continues on. Our next item is a discussion on tax rate planning for the 2023 budget.
All right, you'll have to bear with me on this one because
This is exciting.
yeah. So in recent years, the Finance Committee set a target of no more than 2.5% increase. Last year, the approach was modified to allow for a greater increase if the total tax increase for all jurisdictions, the school district, the county, and mid-state, were projected to be 2.5% or less. This allowed us to increase our levy by more than 2.5%, while taxpayers saw a very limited increase. Most residential property owners actually saw a decrease last year due to the higher lottery credit. This year is going to be different. The tax rate will increase by about 1.2% more than our actual levy increase. In other words, if we increase the amount of our levy by 2.5%, the result would be a 3.7% increase in the tax rate. So, he needs feedback on. So the target has typically applied to the tax rate, not the total levy amount. Do we want to continue with this approach? Are we still looking at a 2.5% target for an annual increase or a different number? And do we want to follow the same strategy as last year of allowing a greater increase in the city's tax levy if the total tax rate increase for all jurisdictions will be within our target? Currently, he is expecting the county to increase their levy, so this is somewhat unlikely. If we increase the tax rate by 2.5%, it's only going to leave our total levy increase as of 1.3%, which is going to be relatively difficult to withstand. So, we did make up some ground last year. Because we had the higher tax rate because the other ones were lower, but basically we need to decide between a reasonable tax rate versus an increase in capital.
I read that at home and I was trying to get my head wrapped around it and it just kept spinning, but is the bottom line, we're looking at a 3.7% tax increase?
Short answer is no,
No, okay.
but maybe.
Okay.
Go ahead. Would you like to speak,
If I
Mayor?
could expound on
Just-
things a little
just-
bit.
Just to be clear, Mayor.
We don't know, yeah, to be perfectly clear, I don't know. We're pretty new right now, fresh in the process of working with the operational budget. As a matter of fact, did you get your last operational budget back today?
No, I'm missing two.
Okay, so we still have a couple of departments that haven't been able to turn in their operational budget. I've asked for a 0% increase in any operational budget outside of wages and benefits so we can inject as much as we possibly can into the pay plan, but that's not gonna be enough. So the council has set this guideline of 2.5%, which is great. People know what to expect. However, how much did prices go up this year?
Yeah.
2.5% is left in the dust. So it's important to note that your directors, even though it was a 0% increase, they're actually facing a net loss because the cost of goods and services is going up. So they're gonna be once again asked to do more with less. They're not even gonna ask to do more. They're gonna ask to do the same with less. But it's also important that we make sure our employees get taken care of because the cost of goods and services is going up for them too. Gallon of milk for you and me is the same thing they pay. So we try and inject as much as we possibly can to keep up with the rate of inflation, which is somewhere around 7% this year. We're not gonna be able to touch that. However, if we stick with that 2.5% that the council has kind of set as the guideline, we're gonna have a much more challenging year to make those budget ends meet. So what Corey's looking for is, are you set on no more than a 2.5% increase? Or, hopefully this is an odd year or two, are we okay with some flexibility in making a recommendation to council that is, I'll say more realistic to actually getting the job done, which will result in more than a 2.5% increase overall to property taxes. Now, you have to understand that that's going to affect every single property owner in the city. And if the county's going up likely as well, and I don't want to put words in their mouth yet, you still have the school district, you still have mid-state, and then if you live in a lake district, you have that opportunity too to just pay more money. But we've come to expect a certain level of goods and services provided by the city. To do that efficiently, we need to pay for it. So that's really the bottom line of what Corey's looking for, and we're all really looking for guidance on. Are you dead set on that 2.5%, or are you a little comfortable with us putting forth a budget that's going to be able to be realistic? And I see that President Johnson has her hand up now too.
Go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, my voice, I can't help it. These are extraordinary times, and I appreciate the last 5 or 6 years where we were really judicious in our approach, and it's given us the latitude now during these very challenging times of high inflation, and it's coming back down. But I think we have to provide operation and administration the flexibility to look at this more wholly. Again, we don't want to see prices go up or tax rate go up too much, but we've got to have some flexibility. It's just, we have a lot to consider, and I don't want to get locked into that 2.5%. We've done it before, and it worked out well. So we've been able to manage those costs to property owners. Let's give some flexibility and see what this looks like. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Alder Short.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, that's an important point about what we see in the trends of inflation easing. What I wonder is, can we look at this kind of as a multi-year budgeting? I mean, I'm sure we probably can't formally, but for planning purposes, and we're being asked our intentions, might it make sense to combine a few years here and look down the road a bit?
Thank you.
Got it?
Yes, go ahead, Alder Morrow.
I want to compliment the mayor for trying to focus on the employees. I know as a state employee, as a civil servant myself, the state for years did not do that, and that's why the state's in the problem that it's in now. And it's great that the mayor's trying to focus in on that. And with a 0% increase as well, that doesn't, that is going to be hard for the city. But I know when Director Badun and others comes in with how much the bids keep going up and up and up, there's really nothing that we could really do about that. Nobody really wants their taxes to go up. One of the biggest complaints that I know we all hear is taxes. No one wants their taxes to go up. I don't want my taxes to go up. But I know from also being here as well, the city has a responsibility to the taxpayer to keep the level of services that we also have. I don't think anyone wants our streets to not get plowed or potholes not to also be fixed. It's one of those. It's sad, but it's kind of like the cost of doing business. Is we have to keep the services that we have, and I hope that this is just a 1 year out, because I know when I've seen other places do multi-year budgeting, it's basically worthless because you can't really know how much snow is gonna fall, so how much are you gonna pay for snowfall, for snow removal and so on. But I think it's something it's gonna really be hard, but it's something that I think we have to try to look at.
Just looking at revaluation coming in 2023, I guarantee you the taxes are gonna go up from that, because the assessment on real estate will be much higher. It's been crazy, real estate market, it's starting to slow down, but I see an increase in taxes there in 2023. I'm thinking as a family, if I don't have the money to buy a color TV or some fancy new thing, I don't buy it. I wait till I do have the money. I think we have to do a better job, and the department heads are doing a better job of watching their pennies, then they don't have to worry about their dollars. But I don't know if 3.75% tax increase is something that people are gonna be dancing in the street. Oh, I got a pothole fixed. I'm paying 3.75% more. I don't know. I'm shooting, in my mind, I'm thinking 3%, just to give a little latitude, but not 1.25%. That's just my gut feeling.
Okay. I think this is a difficult question. I think I
Yeah.
agree with the flexibility, and I think being armed with the information about last year on the surface level, what residents get in their mailbox. They had a decrease last year, and being able to explain that when people bring up questions, and then also if they see that 3.5% increase, if it gets to that point, being able to explain that well. Our city directors are working with a 0% increase in budget, and if you want the goods and services at even the same level, then we have to have competitive pay and human resource environment, and that's what we were just discussing earlier this evening. So, yeah, I guess I agree with the flexibility, as difficult as it is for this year. And
It's not a happy place either way,
do we need an official vote on that, or was our discussion sufficient?
That's a discussion item.
Yeah, I think we've got what we need to consider.
All right. Our next item then is looking for a possible action on approval of claims already paid.
Make a motion to approve the claims paid.
I second.
Motion by Carlson and second by Morrow. Alder Shores, you have your hand raised.
Thank you very much. So one of the items in the summary that's highlighted is a tax incentive payment. So I just thought I would take a moment to make a general comment about tax incentives. They really are some of the most important decisions we make. And they involve significant resources, as is reflected in that payment. And I just wanted to say, personally anyway, how I look at them, which is that we pay those incentives when a business is taking a risk to operate in our community and to invest in our community. It's not about subsidizing successful businesses. That's the way I look at it anyway, is to kind of meet halfway when there's a risk being taken. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Is there any other discussion on the claims already paid? Audience? All right, I'll look for a vote then. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed would be no. Any abstentions? And that is approved. And that is the end of our agenda. We'll be adjourned at 7:21.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.